On behalf of the Riga City Council, the institution that is hosting also this discussion session within the Riga conference, it is my great pleasure to welcome you all. And I just want to underline that for our capital city of the Republic of Latvia, resilience, security and safety of our people is of crucial importance. That's also why we are involving ourselves in the Riga conference and taking up a pioneering role in Latvia. We are very well aware that urban places and capital cities all around Europe actually are the ones who have to do that because they have a lot of executive power. They are so close to people that if capital cities do not do that, there will be nobody doing the job. So thank you for being, all of you, here. And I hope this will be an interesting discussion and a fruitful one for all of us here. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Linda. Well, I've already introduced one of our panelists, but we're very privileged to have with us today Andrii Yurchenko, who was the mayor, effectively the head of the local authority, the Rubizhne city territorial community in Rubizhne city. Rubizhne is a town in southeastern Ukraine which was occupied during the full-scale Russian invasion. Andrii was there at the time and will tell us about the role that the city authorities play in that kind of crisis. Linda, as she's described, the deputy mayor of Riga, is somebody who's very much involved in organizing resilience, in supporting the population and preparing for possible scenarios of conflict, but also of other crises. Perhaps she'll tell us a bit about the role of the city authorities during the COVID-19 crisis, during the arrival of Ukrainian refugees, and how cities, how vital they are in that role. Jasper Jonge is from Tampere, city in central Finland. They call it the Manchester of Finland. I'm not sure whether that's a compliment or an insult.
If you're a football club.
If you're, their football team isn't that good. And Jasper is involved in preparing in the future resilience of one of Finland's main cities, a big tech center, amongst other things. So he'll talk to us about that. And there, perhaps the scenarios are more related to climate crises, climate-induced crises, than to war or refugee crises, but he'll tell us that. And finally, last but certainly not least, Dr. Eyal Frucher, who comes to us from Israel. He's a senior psychiatrist. He works, amongst other places, at Rambam University in Haifa, and Rambam Hospital, University Hospital, Haifa, right? And he was, in the past, the chief psychiatrist of the Israeli Defense Forces medical service. So that would be a question about, he's very specialized, amongst other things, in post-traumatic stress. He's done a lot of his research on that. And I will ask also, first of all, about how the Haifa city authorities are dealing with the current rocket attacks on Haifa and protecting the population, but also about generally, I think that the Israelis have a story to tell us about morale in wartime and about how societies cope with this. My sense, having been a foreign correspondent in Israel, was that Israel was very united when it was in conflict, and as soon as the conflict was over, and sometimes even before the conflict was over, it fell apart and everybody was at everybody else's throat. But that's perhaps resilience of a democracy.
Yeah, families.
And families. So first, Andrii, let me turn to you. What was your role when Rubizhne came under attack during Russia's brutal full-scale invasion of Ukraine 2 years ago?
По-перше, всім доброго дня. Я безмежно і щиро дякую міській владі Риги, організаторам цієї конференції за запрошення і маю велику честь представляти рубіжанську громаду міста Рубіжне, а також Луганщину і всю Україну на цій конференції.
Good morning, everyone. And it's a privilege to me to represent the town of Rubizhne and the whole of Luhansk Oblast province in Ukraine here during the Riga conference. Glory to Ukraine.
Пожалуйста.
Рубіжне – це невеличке місто, населення якого становило 60 тисяч. До Рубіжанської громади входило 13 сіл. Існували до повномасштабного вторгнення всі заклади освіти, культури, здоров'я, а також були надпотужні підприємства, які славились на всю Європу. Це завод по виробництву картону, а також завод по виробництву тротилу.
What is the town of Rubizhne? Before the full-scale invasion, it was a town with 60,000 population, and there were also 13 villages around the town. And there were a number of educational, medical, cultural institutions and facilities. And it also was a place where a big cardboard factory operated and also a trottil factory.
Mm-hmm.
Це місто знаходиться на сході України, де працювало надзвичайно працьовиті та героїчні люди. Але коли почалась повномасштабна війна, на жаль, мер міста і міська влада зрадила Україні. В зв'язку з цим указом президента України було мене призначено на посаду начальника міської військової адміністрації міста Рубіжне.
The people of Rubizhne were heroic and brave people, but unfortunately the authorities of Rubizhne, they betrayed Ukraine, and so the mayor of the town and also the authorities of the town, they betrayed for Russia, and that's why I was assigned by the President of Ukraine, the military head of the administration of Rubizhne.
So that was while the city was under attack, or after it had already been occupied?
Це було тоді, коли місто вже перебувало під окупацією, чи під час?
Місто ще не перебувало під окупацією. Почались тільки навколо міста бої, але мера знайти не могли. І через 2 місяці після вторгнення в Україну місто ще не було повністю окуповано, був призначено мене. Але я тоді був діючим військовим. І в місті з правоохоронними органами, а також своїм підрозділом, ми допомагали людям в евакуації, в довозі продуктів. І чому я зазначив, що це люди дійсно героїчні, тому що ніхто їм ніякі вказівки не давав, вони один одному допомагали їдою, водою, а також евакуацією з цього пекла.
I started holding this position before the town was actually occupied, but during the attack, the Russian attack, the mayor disappeared. No one could find him. So that's why, so during that period before, prior to the occupation, I was assigned as the acting head of administration. And so that period lasted for about 2 months. And I was an acting military person, and we started acting so we did a lot of work. Why I mentioned that our people were heroic, because in spite of all the harsh circumstances, we dealt with supplies of food, water, and other vital services. And many people acted really heroically.
Yeah. So how did you go about your task, and did you have to organize the evacuation of the population?
Як ви впоралися з вашими завданнями і чи вам потрібно було евакуювати?
Ми з завданнями впорались, вважаю, на оцінку добре, це точно. Ми евакуювали людей. Близько 15 тисяч проживає на території України, близько 15 тисяч на території Європи. На жаль, деякі люди залишились там. Це люди переважно похилого віку або захворюваними якими-то. Ну, і також, звісно, 10%, які зрадили країну.
Yes, we evacuated about 15,000 people. They are now scattered in different regions in Ukraine. Some of the evacuated people are in other countries of Europe. Mostly those are elderly people. Many have some medical issues. But unfortunately, a part of the population, they betrayed Ukraine.
Yeah. Are you still in contact with citizens who remained in Rubizhne?
Чи ви перебуваєте, чи ви контактуєте з людьми Рубіжна, ті, що залишилися там?
Звісно, ми підтримуємо зв'язок, але, на жаль, не можу сказати саме який, тому що це так військова таємниця. Ми готові до деокупації і готові зайти в місто і відновлювати його.
Yes, we are keeping contact with some people in the town. I cannot reveal, of course, the channel of this communication under the circumstances, but we are ready to re-enter the city and to work after the occupation.
Yeah. Is there active resistance going on in Rubizhne at the moment?
Чи в Рубіжному є якийсь рух опору зараз, в теперішній час?
Є, але люди дуже бояться висловлювати свою думку, так як там немає демократії. Росія і демократія – це несовмістимо.
There is some, but people are very much fearful of doing anything because there is no democracy, of course, in Russia in general and in this occupied area. Russia and democracy are totally different things.
Yes, indeed. Final question before I come on to our other panelists in this round. Andrii, how are you preparing for the future? Because you're still working on the future of Rubizhne, I believe.
І зараз ми перейдемо до інших панелістів. Як ви працюєте для майбутнього? Що ви робите зараз для майбутнього?
Ну, по-перше, хотілося б зазначити у зв'язку зі втратою всіх документів, архіву, техніки. Ні одного документа не було евакуйовано, так як мер забрав всю свою команду і залишився там, який зрадив Україну. Але незважаючи на це, з повного нуля ми відновили діяльність військової адміністрації як органом управління, а також відновили вже 2 наші лікарні. Одна з них працює в Харкові, в місті Герої, займається реабілітацією військових. Друга працює в Дніпрі. Також відкрили гуманітарний штаб в місті Вінниці, який забезпечує понад 15 тисяч переселенців з міста Рубіжного. Також прийняли декілька програм щодо підтримання наших людей, які мають захворюваність, а також для відпочинку дітей, де виплачено було за 2 роки понад 30 мільйонів гривень.
One of the issues was that we lost all the documents in the city because the mayor and his subordinates, they actually took possession of all the documents, and we had to renew everything from scratch. And so we had zero documentation, and we started renewing, and quite successfully. What we did in the meantime, so the hospital of Rubizhne started operating in Kharkiv, and also another one in Dnipro. And we also established humanitarian headquarters for the people of Rubizhne in the city of Vinnytsia. And we also dealt with medical issues of the population of Rubizhne, and we paid around 30 million hryvnias, so for different purposes to the people.
Thank you very much, Andrii. I'm sure that the audience will have more questions for you when we come to that question time. But let me move on to Linda now, our host city. How's the City Council preparing for contingencies? What scenarios do you have to be ready for? And what have you learned from the experiences of COVID and from the influx of refugees from Ukraine?
Right, thank you. You know, when preparing for this discussion, I was thinking on how to describe the city council's role, not only the capital city, any city councils or any municipality's role in a crisis situation. And figuratively, the closest I came to was a comparison to a school and the role of a teacher in a school. So there is somebody who has founded the school, not the teacher, but somebody. And if we compare with the organization of a state, so the founder would be the national level. And then there are children coming to school, getting the services, which are comparatively our inhabitants. But the school is not functioning without a teacher. And the teacher has a task to cooperate upwards and to cooperate downwards, and to cooperate also with the parents who are not in the school, but still have a lot of power to say. So municipalities, in a crisis situation, we have to, first of all, ensure that our continuity is there. So we have to have the readiness of not only plans, but also tested our readiness for crisis situation. So this is the most important. We have to assist our residents. And we have a threefold task. We have to assist also the national level, the armed forces, the need be. That's also the legislation providing for that.
Right.
So this is working in so many different directions.
Yeah.
Latvia as a country, well, we have to admit, we have pulled ourselves together now after 2022. No, we started with the COVID, but then 2022 was really a breaking point. And we've done a lot to strengthen our resilience and work on civil protection. It needs a political support. In Riga, we have that, and I think we have also managed to push also the national level to work with bigger steps. So what we are doing this year, for example, putting a great emphasis also on communicating with our inhabitants and trying to, like teachers do, give the information, possibly also some tools, so that they can think how they will act, what they will do in a crisis situation. Teachers, when teaching the children, they are not doing the homework instead of them, but they are giving the right guidelines how to proceed. So this is also the role of municipalities that we are actively doing to ensure public and open communication with our residents. And internally, of course, we are putting a lot of resource into our ensuring continuity of all our services and municipal companies, which is also critical infrastructure. So these are the two key priorities at the moment.
Absolutely. So you making sure that your networks are secure, that you have failovers if one network goes down.
And reserves in case something fails, and procedures in place. Of course, it means that we are developing our crisis management system, a professional one, which is nota bene, extremely important, independent of politicians who come and go in all societies. Sure. But the professional crisis management system with professional experts doing that is of utmost importance.
So do you do civil defense exercises? I mean, if Riga were to come under attack, do people know where to go?
Well, we are participating for several years already in cooperation with our armed forces in the national trainings that we have every year in September. So we just finalized one. And this year we actively tested also our ability. What we trained was the evacuation process. Yeah. This year, we put an emphasis on our internal organization and procedures, how to do that in case of mass evacuation. But I think next year, 2025, will be that we will also step outside and involve more people. We involved residents, representatives of Riga residents this year as well, but on a minor scale. So this first training was more for our internal readiness. Yeah. And this is also from the lessons from the Ukrainian refugees. Yes. What we have to keep in mind, municipalities in general, all over, in Latvia and any other country, they are the ones facing the clients first. And a great lesson from 2022, actually we didn't have, as a country, experience of accepting refugees on a mass scale. Yeah. We didn't have the procedures and the plans in place, so we had to create this procedure with online. And the way we did was to put ourselves in the shoes of a refugee. If I come to a foreign country, what my needs are, what my questions are, what I would do, yep. And then offer response to these needs. And it proved to be the right way. Not creating service and support from above, from a cabinet or a room of a ministry, but from a bottom-up approach.
Do you have networks of volunteers who, I mean, we, for example, in my little town in France, tiny little town in south of France, we created sort of overnight a volunteer group to help Ukrainian refugees, and we brought 37 refugees, it's a drop in the ocean, to our village, and we organized for volunteers to give them housing and, you know, first supplies, as you say, because they arrived with nothing, and so on. Do you do that in Riga?
Yes, we sometimes you hear is that Latvians are not very organized in non-governmental organizations, yes. But not in a crisis situation. This was proved also by what happened in 2022. In a crisis situation, Latvians were very active volunteering, and we have a lot of our community NGOs that municipality officially cooperates with. Yeah. Absolutely.
Final question to you for this round. How do you balance between being prepared but not making the population panic? Because I know, for example, in Lithuania, they've had some difficulty with this. In Lithuania, some of the government announcements and so on got people very scared and created a sort of sense of panic at times.
Well, I think we, earlier this year and at the end of last year, we experienced just an opposite situation, that there was no communication from not enough communication from the public sector, yeah. Which made people panic. Yeah. Is the country getting ready for a crisis situation if it happens? So there needs to be a balance. And at the beginning of this year, we approved our civil defense plan for the Riga city and surrounding territories. And then we said internally that we want to communicate and talk about all the risks and the actions that people should do in a case of a certain crisis, and educate our inhabitants. We had professionals on the national side, in state institutions saying, but won't you make too much panic in the society? I would say at that moment, and still, there is a demand in the Latvian society, give us information. Let's talk about it, because then we know that we are getting ready.
Yeah, so in other words, what the message, the learning point is, it's when there's a vacuum that people panic, when nobody's talking, rather than when people are saying this is what to do in case of, if there's a clear information. So going back to my question earlier, if there's a crisis in Riga tomorrow, do people know where to go?
Well, it depends on the crisis. I want them to know what to do. Maybe not necessarily to go somewhere. If it is, I don't know, crisis of chemical leakages, you don't have to go, better stay inside.
Yeah. Right. Okay, thank you very much. Jasper, Tampere, you're further away from the front line, and the big crises that you face may well be climate-induced crises. How are you preparing Tampere to be a resilient city in the future?
Thank you for the question. So in 2022, Tampere has committed to the Making Cities Resilient 2030 initiative. This is through the United Nations. So this is a part of the recognition that cities are at the forefront of the climate response, with more than half of the population of the world living in cities. So through this commitment, we're looking to increase the resilience and the urban resilience of the city. We've been conducting research on how to do so, finding that it's the combination of social and ecological resilience that combines on that urban level. We have various projects. We're in the data-driven development program for citizens. So we're looking at how we can use data, resident participation, and other innovative and adaptive strateges. So I can also give you a couple of examples.
Yeah, please, give us some examples.
Sure. So we have the We Generate project. It's a 4-year project through Horizon Europe. We're collaborating with different European cities. For Tampere, as you mentioned, this climate resilience is very important. So this project is focused on increasing walkability in the city. It's human-centric, walkable city. So we're looking at climate neutrality, going towards climate negativity in the future. However, to do this process, we need to involve the residents in the project work. So we've found that it's very important to get the residents on board, to empower the residents to be a part of the decision-making, the co-creation, and the development with the city. So we're also involving digital tools and new technologies such as digital twins, so a digital representation of the urban city spaces. So for this project, we've developed, in collaboration with a private company, a digi-twin of the inner city area. And we then put on workshops with the residents, where the residents can experience an immersive, have an immersive experience of the urban space. And we're then discussing with the residents, are we meeting their safety, security, resilience, and well-being needs? What are the challenges? What are the obstacles? What can we do to improve? Yeah. And we've had really good feedback from these workshops, both the innovative and inspiring ideas, where the city is able to gain these sparks of inspiration from the residents, and the city can also give the inspiration to the residents to strengthen this partnership. We've also had the feedback from the residents that being able to be involved in the very early stages of urban planning is very valuable to them. So rather than just consulting the residents near the completion and the execution of the urban developments, we're doing it at the early stages. And this is possible through the use of the digital tools and the strong resident participation.
What did you learn from, I mean, probably the most recent crisis that you've had to face in Tampere would be the COVID-19 pandemic. What did you learn from that experience about interacting crisis management with the population?
I would say that the use of data is very important. So having flexible, adaptive approaches, connecting the residents, whether it's through smart applications. So we have the Tampere.Finland application. This is able to communicate directly with the citizens in Tampere. We can also gain information. There's a lot of surveys finding out about well-being, different socio-economic needs of the people. So this is a very sort of fast and direct way that we can create this unity within the city.
Great. Well, let me come on to Dr. Frucher. Thanks for your patience first. You live in a city that's faced a rocket attack in the last week. How does the city of Haifa deal with that? And what role does it play in supporting citizens?
Well, thank you. I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for your lovely town. And I'm looking at the peaceful streets here, and I'm thinking, yeah, we're not in a peaceful time now in Israel. I come from Haifa. I was born in Haifa. Haifa is a very peaceful town, usually, on the Mediterranean beaches, and has lovely seashores, and it's a very peaceful town on the mountain of Carmel. And all of a sudden, it gets a lot of bombs. Now, in 2006, it was the first time that Haifa was directly bombed, because it was the Second Lebanese War, which also took us by surprise, although everybody knew that it will be bombed. Now, if you look at municipalities and you think, what should municipalities do? I think the mayor of Haifa at that time, Eyal, was very right in a lot of aspects, because he made plans in advance. The most important thing is to prepare yourself, and by preparedness, you must understand what the role of leadership is, and the role of leadership is crucial when people are terrified, because they look and they want to know that they have whom to look at. Yeah. When you said that the mayor just left town, I thought to myself, wow, that's a terrible break. Yeah. That's a terrible breakdown. Yeah. And and when I hear, Linda, you talk about preparedness, that's great, because we need to prepare. What do I mean by preparing? First, he said to himself, okay, what is so important when war comes to Haifa? Yeah. And then he thought, okay, first we need the municipality to keep on going. So the roads should be cleaned, and there should be food in the supermarkets, and there should be money on the ATMs, because everybody is running to cash money. Right. And so what he said is, okay, I learned from the Americans, when the American Katrina hurricane came to St. Louis, only 1/3 of the first responders and the municipalities came to work, because everybody was picking their own families. You know, if I have kids, I would not leave them and go to work, because they are under attack, okay, by hurricane, by disaster, or by bombs. So he said, I want all the municipal workers to come to work. And how do I do that? I keep their kids safe. So he opened automatically, and he trained that beforehand, to open automatically places for the kids of the employees of the municipality in a very safe place, in some underground fortified area. And then when war came, they knew where to bring their kids, and then they could come to work. Right. So this is a very important. He said, we need all the time the light of the streets to work. So we invested a lot in that, because you want a lot of light, so people will not be frightened. And he managed to build a confidence with all the first responders, and to build the same language talk by training. Because sometimes, you know, the medical teams and the fire department, the police department, they don't talk the same languages. And they don't see that should communicate with each other. But they should, and they should train.
So it's a whole of society.
And he knew what to say to the media at every point. And you always need to give most information you have, but only stick to truth and facts. So if you don't know, it's a very leadership thing to say, we don't know yet. But as soon as we'll know, I'll let you know. And the public should always know. And today there are a lot of rumors running in the nets and in all the activities on the internet. So you must give very truth facts as soon as you have them. So that's communication.
yeah.
And
So those were lessons partly drawn from the 2006 attack.
And now
how has it worked? How has it worked in practice?
Well, in practice in 2006 it worked great.
Yeah.
And now we are in a totally different situation, because what we learned as a country, that we can't let the enemy influence us that much. So we built a lot of defense forces and defense ways, like Iron Dome and other methods. Some of them are now in the Ukraine, and some of them are in Poland and in Finland. And these are all very good systems that protect you. And you know, now we had 200 missiles falling per day in the northern regions of Haifa, with only 5% of them actually falling on the ground.
But you still have to implement the emergency plans,
but
the children to the shelters.
Sure. You need to take it very seriously. And you need to keep on the systems going, because, as you said, the continuation of functioning is super important. It's super important for not panicking. It's super important for not changing the way that you conceive the reality as impossible. So we can function. Now, there are other areas in Israel that could not function because the danger was too immediate. But in Haifa, you still have a minute and a half to run to the shelter. That's the time taking the missiles to fly out of the way.
So you get casualties, 90 seconds.
We got 90 seconds to run to a shelter, which is basically good enough. Most people would arrive to a shelter by that time.
And do they go?
Yeah.
Because in Kiev, my friends who've been in Kiev in the last few weeks say people hear the air raid sirens and they say, forget it.
Oh, that's terrible, because then you get wounded and you get higher casualties. I think that the Israeli public is usually very unobedient, but for that we are very obedient. And most people do go and not stand and take the pictures of the missiles falling.
Andrii, you wanted to come in.
Дякую. Я хотів доповнити. Я повністю погоджуюсь з паном Еялем. Чому? Ми говоримо про плани, які написані на бумагах. А пан Eyal зазначив, саме головне – це навчання. Чому? Тому що кожна людина і кожна дитина повинна знати і розуміти, куди їй йти в кризовій ситуації. Як вона буде підтримувати зв'язок з рідними? А є там зв'язок чи нема? А буде в цьому укритті достатньо електроенергії чи не буде? Тому що якщо не буде, наприклад, зв'язку, то мама буде в одному укритті, син в другому укритті. Якщо мама не зв'яжеться, вони вийдуть з цього укриття. Дякую.
Everything should be planned and should be put on paper ahead. These rehearsals, preparations, they are of utmost importance, and everyone should know where to go, what exactly to do in this or that situation. And communication is also crucial, and also electrical supplies are very important, because, for example, children, they go to, children of one family, they go to one shelter, and then the mother, father, they are in another shelter. How will they communicate? If they don't have this communication, so they may leave the shelter and then they're exposed to danger. So communication is crucial.
So the extraordinary importance of having chargers so that people's phones can keep working, right?
If the net doesn't fall.
And having a reserve a backup network, so if the network goes down.
We must understand that the cyber fight is as important, as dangerous as the missiles. Okay? And we must know that when Riga, and I hope it would never happen, but when Riga would be attacked, there probably no cell net would work at the beginning. Okay? We are training for that too, because we know it will happen.
I have difficulty when I try to explain in France, where I live, that we are already at war.
Yeah, but you are.
Because there is a hybrid war going on every day, with people trying to influence our minds, trying to influence our communications, trying to sabotage our hospitals, using all the tools that they can below the threshold of actual warfare, of military conflict, to try and influence our societies, break our unity, and so on. People in France don't get that, which I find, worrying. Anyway, thank you. Very interesting interventions. Now, the floor is yours. We have a quarter of an hour for you to ask your questions. So who would like to ask the first question? Go on. You've got very interesting people here. You've got a man who's been involved actually in dealing with these issues on the ground in wartime. You've got a man who's been dealing with multiple conflicts, both with the psychiatric effect on society and on the armed forces and in a city. Am I going to have to ask all the questions myself? Yes, madame. Can we wait for a microphone? Please say who you are.
Good morning, Linda Susbartova, Czechia, Prague.
Yeah.
I would like to ask you about this cognitive warfare going on.
Yeah.
Based on your description of the situation.
Yeah.
So how are we preparing those in crucial positions that when faced difficulties, they truly would not leave? And it's a very sensitive issue because you cannot question the leadership, and it's a sensitive issue because you cannot also destabilize the population that something like that might happen. Thank you. And thank you all for your interesting contributions.
Yeah. Who would like to answer that? Linda, do you want to have a go?
Well, leaving or not leaving, that is, of course, a very personal choice for each and every citizen and family. But what I think the idea of leaving first would come to your mind if you really are afraid, if you are not preparing, if you are not thinking what you will do in a crisis situation. It's a natural thing to run away to a safer place, which in some cases would mean leaving your country. Of course, we want our people to be safe. We don't want them to leave. So that's what we can do. We can offer information and talk and educate and encourage them to want to know. So this is a very important aspect I'm stressing throughout this year. You have to be willing to know. We can, as a public sector representatives and institutions, offer all of the information. If you don't listen, if you don't read, if you don't look for it, and you close your mental reaction towards it, we are not able to help. So you have to be willing. And in our case, it is understanding that you are co-responsible for your safety. It will not be only the municipality, only the armed forces, only the state that will take care. If you have to go to a shelter in Ukraine, you have to do it yourself with your two legs and with your mind deciding for this choice. So I think we have, for almost 3 decades in Latvia, we have lived in peaceful times, so that, well, all those dark times are behind us. Now we can relax and enjoy. But no. To be safe, we have to be prepared. And it means also this co-responsibility, willingness, being open to know what to do in a crisis situation. But of course, no illusions with the cognitive hybrid warfare. I think we are very... We are aware as a society, we're very aware, because we see it on a daily basis, how our enemy is trying to split the society across all the possible themes and subjects, be it national, different opinion, anything, and of course to raise distrust in the power structures.
Eyal.
Yeah, okay. It's a very important question because there is a lot of a cognitive war, and we are facing all the time false truths. Okay. Now, the real truth, what is the real truth? That's a question, right? It's a philosophical aspect. And actually, nobody believes anything anymore, because we are in a decade where everything can be construction with deepfake or with others, and there is a lot of history rebuilding and narrative rebuilding, and it's very hard to decide which one is the truth. But the way for us to cope with it, and I'm talking as municipalities or as community leaders, we need to make sure that people gain their trust. We work very hard for their trust in us, and by being there and being there with all our emotions. Sometimes we are also sad, or we're also frustrated, or we don't know the right answer, and we must say that and show that. And the other thing is by giving all the people a role during urgent times. And giving role is super important. For instance, we teach the 11th and the 12th graders in the schools, we teach them a special form of intervention, mental intervention, immediately after an event happened. Okay, so if a missile falls and somebody is paralyzed, every teen in Israel would know how to approach him and how to ground him, how to bring him back to reality. Okay? And it is very important, because if you have a role, you freeze less and you do what you're supposed to do, like run to shelter more, because you know that people are depending on you. So giving some of the, and it goes well with what you said, that it's their responsibility too. So it's a shift, not to centralize our roles and to be the only one that are responsible, but to give the others also roles. And the third thing is always to make sure to say to people, don't look at the news all the time. Don't get stuck with the news. Don't get stuck with the internet movies. Leave it. Look at the news once a day, twice a day, just to know what's going on, and don't be overwhelmed by it, because otherwise it's very addicting.
Yeah. And especially now with the 24/7 news cycle.
And news are coming. Okay, it's the same thing.
Competing news channels where the way they get eyeballs is having people who are more hysterical, who are more polemical, who are more insulting, who are more indignant, and not people who are nuanced and calm. I would just add one thing. I'm supposed to be moderating and not a panelist, but let me just add one thought. You know, it really struck me in the COVID crisis, who do people turn to for reliable information? There's a lot of rumor out there about should you get vaccinated, should you not get vaccinated, can you catch it by kissing, can you catch it by shaking hands, can you catch, how distance, who do people turn to? So in COVID, I think, and I observed in my village, the people that you turn to are the pharmacists. Most of the time you can't get an appointment with a doctor. Obviously the doctor is available too, but the medical profession, the paramedical profession. And I see this also for information. We need to pre-identify and pre-train in our communities at municipal, local level, information first responders, who are like people with a first aid kit, but they are people who can give you reliable information. What we used to call, when I worked at Reuters, news you can take to the bank. And in every community, those people should be pre-identified. People in the community should know who they are. Often, it's like also
knowledge gatekeepers.
Yeah, knowledge gatekeepers. What do I do? The internet's not working. My phone's gone down. How do I find out who are the information? And then you need ways of communicating in a crisis when the internet may be down, when mobile phone networks may be down. You need ways of disseminating that reliable information, that then those information first responders in the community, they may be members of the clergy. I know that's a rather 20th century view, but it's one possibility. You need multiple. A combination of a pharmacist, a priest. It sounds like one of those jokes. There was a pharmacist, a priest, and a rabbi on a desert island, right? Who took the parachute, right? Andrii, do you want to comment on this, on the question, or should we'll come back to you later?
Щодо інформації, звісно, можу прокоментувати, то що вона відіграє одну з ключових ролей в кризових ситуаціях і в війні також. Чому? Тому що, якщо взяти Росію, це пропаганда, яка вибиває людей з того напрямку, куди вони рухаються. І якщо людям своєчасно не доводити достовірну інформацію, то людина не зрозуміла, що буде робити. А що стосується, як діяти міської владі, керівникам міст, муніципалітетів в кризових ситуаціях, да, це дійсно погоджуюсь з паном Ліндою, природне явище, тому що людина може бути в стресі, в паніці, страх, а вже з прийняттям цієї ситуації, яка сталася, це кризова ситуація, надзвичайна ситуація або війна, людина через деякий час вже адаптується і приймає вірні рішення. А в паніці, в стресі вона може і покинути місто, а може і не покинути місто. Дякую.
The role of information, of provision of information is crucial in the times of crisis and war, and we know how Russian propaganda works and influences people. So it is as Mrs. Linda told us, it's not always clear what a person in this or that position, how she or he will act, because fear is something characteristic of anyone, and they may act this way or that way, and if a person is stressful, they may act emotionally and say, leave, some time passes, and then the situation stabilizes in this or that way, and then a person is able to take right decisions and not to panic. And so people adopt to new situations.
You know, in the UK, we've got many things wrong in life, but we invented probably the best ever crisis time slogan, which is "Stay calm and carry on." Sir, you have a question. Last question, and then we have to...
Hello, Vitayu. My name is Matti Posio. I'm a Finnish newspaper editor.
Yeah.
My question, and I'm sure many people are interested to hear more from Mr. Yurchenko about being a mayor, about being a head of administration in these times. And we understand from the war and the occupation that the mayors of municipalities in Ukraine played a very crucial role. So can you talk a little bit more about the betrayal that happened and the heroism that also happened on the level of the municipalities and the mayors, and how to prepare that it would not happen again in a similar situation that your predecessor, for example, just vanished?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matti. Andrii.
По-перше, хотів би щодо зрад, це одна, мабуть, така громада, в якій мер зрадив і залишив людей сам на сам. Але в цій громаді достатньо було робітників, спеціалістів, які працювали в муніципалітеті і взяли всю відповідальність на себе і допомагали людям. Тому щодо зради відповісти прямо, мабуть, не зможу. Чому? Тому що це випадки такі, в основному вони можуть бути в муніципалітетах, які граничать з країною-агресором. На жаль, так сталося, був сусід колись хороший, став дуже-дуже поганий, злий, який на нас напав. А Луганська область саме граничить з Росією. Що стосується окупованих громад, то в нас є відповідна коаліція мерів і керівників військових адміністрацій окупованих громад. Ми започаткували місяць назад школу відновлення, де відпрацьовуємо плани стратегій, і наші спеціалісти навчаються в цій школі відновлення і готуються до деокупації. Ми функціонуємо, наші школи релокувались і працюють по всій Україні. Більше 3000 дітей навчають у моїй громаді 300 педагогів, які отримують відповідну заробітну плату. Також існують заклади культури. Ми працюємо, незважаючи на окупацію міста, тому що громада – це не територія, громада – це люди. Люди понад усе. Дякую.
Can we? Thank you. No, the microphone, sorry.
Yes, it's a hard question about betrayal, whether it's possible to be prepared for that. I can say that in our municipality, actually, it's the only or one of few examples where the mayor betrayed his people and his country. But nevertheless, other representatives of the municipality, they stayed and they continued to work, and they continued to be responsible because people relied on them and they responded accordingly. Situations of betrayals are more frequent in the areas bordering on Russia, and Rubizhne is in the Luhansk Oblast, which is bordering on Russia. And so when there was no war, the neighbor, which is Russia, was kind of good and for many people, in many people's heads, and now it's no longer like that. And what we do, we actually we have established a strategy workshop, whatever you call it, and we are instructing people how to instructing representatives of the authorities how to work better in the current situation, because so the main thing is the people and not the territory. And so we have relocated our schools, for example, and there are 3,000 children being taught by 300 teachers at different locations. So teachers, they receive salaries, and the system is operating.
Yeah. Thank you. That's really very interesting. The way that you've sort of reconstituted a community in internal exile, as it were, where the city functions continue, but to people who are no longer in their homes, but who are dispersed. And that's an important thing in terms of supporting morale and retaining their identity. Yeah. We're out of time, unfortunately. Sadly, we could have gone on all day with questions. Thank you so much, Andrii, Yurchenko, Jasper, Jonge, Linda Ozola, and Eyal Frucher. Please join with me in showing your appreciation of a very interesting panel.